Alrighty. I'm really honored to be here to do this. So I do want to say that before I begin. I need to maybe set this. I need to turn it up. And you see my hands shake, and I think I'm going to use that just to talk to the other people who are reading today too. We all feel nervous when we get up here because what we're doing is so important. It's important to us. It's important to our lineage, to our ancestors, to all the people in this room. But when you get up here, that shaking only lasts for a second, and then you get rolling, and it's all fine. So we're all in the same pot, as I was just saying to someone else. When we stand up at a podium, it can be a little bit unnerving. So here we go. Gardafe, Di Rosa, Artisone, Mancini, Ermelino, Capernoloid, Tintori, Vespucci, Tamburi, Cola, Giudici, Morocco, Rosanova, Corsino, Candeloro, Di Stasi, Orsi, Ciavola, Birnbaum, Tritiani, Mangione, Fante, Giunta, Di Salvo, and more, but not enough. These are our Italian-American writers. There are many, but it's not enough. 5.5 million Italians immigrated to America, and 15 million seems to be the current number of self-identifying Italian Americans. But our stories, despite the list I just read you, remain largely untold. There's so many more to tell. They need telling, and in particular, I believe, the Chicago Italians, and now I do mean Chicagoland. I don't want to be, like someone from Chicago's like, oh, you live in Elgin. But the Chicagoland Italian-American stories really need telling and preserving. They have to be shared, and they have to be given legs. And there is a time limit, which is what Dominic was just talking about as well. I'm really going to second a lot of what Dominic said. I'm really here to be, I think, a cheerleader in the writing of these things. That's the most important thing I could do with this keynote address, the most important thing. In the introduction to his book, Day Goes Read, Fred Gardafe writes that recognizing a literary tradition belongs to the individual reader and writer. And that's us. That's us. There's nobody else. We've got to read them, and we've got to write them. I'm a writer, a poet, I'm a teacher of writing, I'm a professor. I think there's a difference between a teacher and a professor, and I think you can be both. There's professing, and then there's teaching, getting down in the trenches with people, encouraging people to create their own art, and that's what teaching is. It's guiding in a lot of ways. I'm also the prose editor now for Ovunque Siamo Journal of New Italian American Writing, so if you're working on something and you're kind of new to writing, or even if you're not, submissions, there are places to send your work. My prize-winning pig over there is on the table, as well as the beautiful anthology that was put together with the Casa Italia. And I'm going to encourage you to read it. I've heard it's wonderful. I have a book of Welsh stories from the dead coming out soon as well, but I'm really here today to speak about your work. I'm here to speak about the work that you're going to write, or that you're going to inspire other people to write, people in your family, people in your communities, whatever that may be. Preserving stories. It has to be done now. And as I was sitting planning this, I really thought, well, what better time? Because, I don't know, there's this Pope guy who's bringing a lot of attention to Chicago, right? And there's an Italian-American heritage there as well. So I feel like there's something ascendant for us in capturing these stories right now. There's a time in these kairos, something's going on here that really matters. And maybe makes it a little bit easier, maybe draws things from us in a different way. So when we talk about writing and what you're going to write or what is being written, we always go back to these rhetorical terms. They're very, very fancy. They're called so what and who cares, right? So what and who cares? We often ask ourselves these questions when we sit down to do something, right? And we often ask that in a kind of negative tone, right? More like a so what? Who cares? Who's going to read this? You know, so what do I have to say that's any different than what someone else has said? But I think if we ask these questions in a positive tone, you get a really different answer. So what? And who cares? Like, someone cares, who cares? So I want to answer those questions for you, and then talk to you a little bit about how and when the writing happens. All right. So what? So what? It's history. That's what. It's history. So what? It's sociology. That's what. When we write our stories, we're doing a sociological endeavor. So what? It's anthropology. Anthropology is important. That's so what. Like Aristotle said, you want to inform, you want to entertain, and maybe most of all, you want to persuade. When you create art, you're persuading someone to have an emotion, to feel something differently than they felt it before, to understand something differently than they have before, to have new realizations, to have a depth of knowledge that they did not come with. That's not just information. That's a transformation in the person who is exposed to your art, be that written or otherwise. Who cares? You care? If you did not care about Italian American literature, you'd not be in this room. If you did not care about literature, you would not be in this room. I care, obviously. The Italian American community cares, and it needs this. It needs a representation in the literary and art world. We come from a history of art, and Italian Americans can really devour one another's art. They can celebrate one another's art. The diaspora cares. And so when I say the diaspora, I don't mean just in America. I went to a conference in Genoa last December. It was a Diaspora Italiani conference. I will butcher Italian, but I'm trying. So just so you know, like, if I'm assaulting you with my Italian, it's okay because I'm learning and I'm getting better. But I went to this conference, and there were Australian Italians, there were Brazilian Italians, there were Canadian Italians, and they were all interested in what we were writing, and we were interested in what they were writing. There's a readership that is larger. There's a diasporic readership. There's an American readership, and I think sometimes we felt that it's for us, by us, that it's our thing, and it is in a lot of ways. But there are people, I have a group of 90-year-old ladies in Elgin who are not Italian American, who picked up my book and loved it and had me come and speak about the book. So we don't need to limit ourselves. Yes, there are messages and there are realities in our writing that will kind of only be really appreciated by people within the group, but there's so much about what we're doing that is useful to other immigrant communities and just to this country and globally, internationally is the last one I want to hit on, right? There's readership there as well, but we have to create it. Which brings me to the how and the when. So, start where you are. Some of you are already writing. A lot of you are probably already writing. But there are other things still for you to write. There are more things still for you to write. You may have multiple projects, or someone may be completely new to putting down their story. Start today. Write something down. We think not before we write, but as we write. If you're waiting to have the entire plan and where you're going to publish it, or who you're going to give it to, and everything you're going to say, if you're waiting until that forms in your head before you start writing, you may never get there. You need to start writing now, put the first sentence down, and then a new thought will come to you, a new idea, a new motivation. It will expand on the paper for you because we think when we write, and we think in different ways. I think it's Bertolt Brecht who said, now I'm going to get it wrong here, if you do not write, you do not think, and if you do not think, others will do your thinking for you. And that really touches on what Don was just saying too, about who's going to tell our stories. If we're not telling them, they will be told. And in an age of AI, that becomes more chilling, perhaps, than it has been in the past. Decide what you want to do as you go, or even after you complete. Maybe you create something, you say, I have no idea what in the world I'm going to do with this mess of notes and memories I wrote down. Or this investigation I did into the history of pine nuts in Melrose Park, right? But I'm going to get it, and then I'm going to decide